social ideological. Many ideas and issues of the 1920s were found to be inadequate, or, in the minds of the social efficiency folks, guilty of causing the Depression. Child-centeredness, that PEA stuff, that fooling around with individualism, all those radicals and intellectuals, that's why we went down the tubes. The businessman and business superiority became responsible. The hero of the 1920s becomes the villain of the 1930s. And along comes a group of people known as Reconstructionists. Now, these are not the same Reconstructionists that emerged in the wake of the Civil War. These are people who emerged during the Depression with the idea of, okay, society is down and out. What would we like it to be like if we were to have some input? The idea of making society over in the attempt to have it conform to some ideal. What should society be like? George Counts was one of the biggest Reconstructionists of the time. He was a professor at Teachers College, Columbia. And as a Reconstructionist, he was invited to deliver the 1932 Progressive Education Association's keynote address. He called it, "Dare Progressive Education Be Progressive." And in it, he challenged the PEA to emancipate itself from the middle class. I guess that's something all reformers do. And build a new social order. The Department of Superintendents picks up on this. Remember, that's the group that the superintendents of schools belong to. They select education and social change as the theme of their 1935 convention. The PEA of the 1930s, and we'll get to how they reacted to George. Remember, it was originally founded as an organization for parents and other friends of education. There were experimental school people and college folks involved, but it was not necessarily a teachers' organization. It grew very slowly at first. In the 1930s, and I don't know why, it becomes the organization to belong to. If you want anything, you want PEA on your vita, because then people will know you are progressive, you are with it, you're on the cutting edge. Unfortunately, as with success many times, success brings an influx of the very people the organization was founded in opposition to. And in most cases, those opposers were professionals. This was founded by child study people. In come the social efficiency folks. Ed Krug identified attempts at change with the leading social efficiency people at Teachers College, Columbia. Cobb, when he was interviewed by Kremen, said they, and when he said they, he meant the people at Teachers College, took our organization away from us. More on the PEA of the 30s. It becomes the pedagogical bandwagon of the day. It's the organization to belong to if you're in teaching. But now, it's not uniform. It has many opposing views. So that when George issues his challenge to build a new social order, the PEA took no action. They didn't do squat. They didn't endorse. They didn't reject. I used to love watching Johnny Carson, and one of his famous quotes, when something happened and no one wanted to be near, he would say, "It lay there like a carp." And I think you can picture this fish laying there on the table, stinking up the room, and no one wanted to go near it. Therefore, the PEA lost credibility. They didn't do anything and languished thereafter. According to Kremen, the persistent failure of the PEA to define a platform for itself and for the public had already begun to take a heavy toll by the end of the 30s. So throughout the 30s, the PEA, in not reacting to what George Counts had challenged them to, lost face in essence and died in popularity. Another quote by Kremen, criticism of progressive education was mounting. Indeed, the year 1940 was somewhat of an open season on progressive teachers, as national magazines, reacting to a decade of extremist pronouncements, lashed out against the movement as naively sentimental on the one hand, dangerously subversive on the other. Moreover, reports flowing in from the field testified to growing opposition from teachers and administrators as well. So that when World War II broke out, the organization could not cope with the loss in funding that occurred. Throughout the 1930s, the organization had become accustomed to a torrent of money. When it was popular, people wanted to give money to it. The Carnegie Foundation, the Ford Foundation, anybody else, the little private organizations. They wanted to be associated with a winner. When this organization became less popular and the war broke out, those sources dried up and went away. What happens when you take money away from an organization that has grown tremendously used to it? The organization was stricken, but didn't actually die for another 14 years. They limped along for a while.